Hey guys, welcome back. I'm gonna be telling you guys why Stanley Kubrick is a better director than Martin Scorsese. Okay, before you go down in the comments and write a hate comment, I have a quick disclaimer. This is my opinion that I will attempt to back up by facts. If you have a different opinion on this subject, then I respect that and we can talk about it in the comments. I also think that these are two of the best directors to ever live, and I'm just stating my personal preference, and they're super close as directors. Now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about Stanley Kubrick and why he's a better director than Martin Scorsese. Okay, so let me explain how these directors got to where they are. Scorsese was born in New York City on November 17th, 1942. He specifically grew up in Little Italy, and he grew up with his parents, Charles and Catherine, who had day jobs while trying to be actors. He had asthma when he was younger, so his parents would often take him to movie theaters, and that kind of hinted at his kind of love for movies later on in his life. And he kind of grew up kind of loving the art of film, and so he went to NYU Film School, and he actually went there a year after NYU Film School originally opened. Just a little fun fact. And while he was there, he made short films like It's Not Just You, Murray, and The Big Shave. He made his big break with Mean Streets in 1973, and it was only up from there. He went on to make movies like Goodfellas, The Wolf of Wall Street, and The Departed. Okay, so now on to Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick was born on July 26, 1928 in Manhattan, New York. So both of these directors were born in New York, and he had a high IQ as a child, but he didn't go to school that much, and he also loved to read and watch the Yankee games. And he grew up, and while he was growing up, he loved chess, and you can see that in a few of his films. And he also got a camera when he was 13, so he learned to love photography, which is displayed in his films, obviously. And his love for photography grew as he was in high school, and he even sold photographs to Look magazine. And after high school, Kubrick went on to go to Columbia University, a very prestigious university, and him and his friend Alexander made a documentary called A Day of the Fight. He also made a few other documentaries with money from investors and money that he made from chess games. And he kept making films, and his first big film, The Killing, wasn't too big of a success. This didn't stop Kubrick though, and he went on to make Paths of Glory, and after that, it's history. And he eventually came out with classics like 2001: A Space Odyssey, Clockwork Orange, and The Shining. Taking risks is often a pivotal part of a filmmaker's career, unless you're Martin Scorsese. Okay, I'm just kidding. But Martin Scorsese is known to take less risks with his films than Kubrick is. Stanley Kubrick often tries to push limits with his films by doing unique things like he does in 2001: A Space Odyssey and The Clockwork Orange. These two films are unique and unlike any other films ever in history, and I don't think Scorsese's films can say that. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, but Kubrick just tries to push limits with all of his films, and I personally love that with a filmmaker and an artist in general. Examples of Kubrick pushing limits as far as possible are at the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey and how experimental it is. The ending is just so weird, and on first viewing it can seem like that, but he just kind of leaves stuff behind, and he makes you try to think about it and dissect it, and that's what's so great about that ending. And who in 1968 made a serious space film with a star child? That's pretty daring. And another example is honestly the entire Clockwork Orange film. Whether it's the subject matter, the use of color, or just the film in general, also the dialogue. This film is just an insanely unique and different film. The most I can really think of Scorsese being daring is with his moving shot in The Goodfellas, or the hypnotic parts of Taxi Driver. He is still a great director, but I'm just saying that he doesn't do as daring things as maybe a Stanley Kubrick does. And yes, he has these examples of being daring, but they're just not to that level. And when they're put next to the likes of Stanley Kubrick, it's just not even close. Objectively, both of these directors' best films are Goodfellas for Scorsese and 2001: A Space Odyssey for Stanley Kubrick. These films are so drastically different and both so great. They're probably both top 100 films ever made. And I'm just going to be comparing them for this argument. And at the end of the day, it just comes down to personal preference. According to Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, Goodfellas is barely better. But in my opinion, I would take 2001: A Space Odyssey any day of the week, and I'll explain why. So in my opinion, Goodfellas is just another mob movie. And I know I just made a lot of people mad by saying that, but it is. It can really be boiled down to this. A child named Henry Hill is introduced to the mob at a young age and slowly works his way up until he eventually crashes and burns. Oh wait, what does that sound like? The Wolf of Wall Street. But The Wolf of Wall Street has Jordan Belfort instead of Henry Hill and a stock brokerage instead of the mob. Isn't this plot also like so many other crime films? I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that it's a bad film, but I don't think it is at all to the caliber of 2001. The plot of 2001 is just too entirely hard to explain. It can't be put into really any categories. It is virtually about a space expedition that goes awry when an AI turns on the ship, and it kind of goes crazy. I guess that's the only way I can explain it. And while this is also going on, a monolith has been found on the moon, and then after that, chaos ensues. To me, this plot seems so much more interesting than the Goodfellas plot. Not to mention the cinematography in 2001: A Space Odyssey. The cinematography in both of these is great, especially in that one scene in Goodfellas with the long shot at the restaurant that I talked about earlier. That scene has some of the best. That's one of the best scenes to see cinematography and long shots that you can see in any movie. But it just doesn't compare to 2001. 2001 has some of the most iconic shots in film history, and some of the most iconic edits in film history, such as at the beginning of the film when the monkey is kind of swinging its bone and then it cuts to a spaceship. No film has ever had an edit like that, and no film will ever have that iconic of an edit. And that's why I just think 2001 is simply a better film than Goodfellas. Variety or consistency? This is what you have to ask when judging between Scorsese and Kubrick. Virtually all of Scorsese's films, or at least his most popular films, can be categorized into two categories: crime and action. Films in this category for Scorsese are, and this is a long list, so be prepared: The Irishman, Goodfellas, Taxi Driver, Mean Streets, The Departed, Wolf of Wall Street, Casino, Raging Bull, Shutter Island, Gangs of New York, King of Comedy, After Hours, and Cape Fear. Obviously, this displays that Scorsese's films don't have much variety, and some may be fond with that, but I would prefer a director that shows versatility than mainly just one genre. Kubrick shows versatility with all of his films, and that's one of his best skills. He can make a comedy like Dr. Strangelove, and then more of a sci-fi like 2001: A Space Odyssey. Kubrick's films range from the genres adventure and crime to comedy and sci-fi. Versatility in many cases proves a director's skill, especially in the case of Stanley Kubrick's. Kubrick's sci-fi films are just as good as his comedy films. Now, I'm not saying that Scorsese has no versatility. I'm just saying that he hasn't proven it when it's put next to Kubrick. Kubrick has obviously proven that he has more versatility than Martin Scorsese, and that's honestly, you can judge whether you want that or not with your directors, but honestly, I want a director that has more versatility, and that proves their skill as a director as well. And I think Kubrick has obviously shown his versatility. Quantity versus quality. This has to be asked when debating Kubrick and Scorsese as well. And Kubrick has made less films than Scorsese. That's just a fact. That may be true, but Kubrick's films on average, according to Rotten Tomatoes, are better than Scorsese's. On average, Kubrick's films get an 89% when you average out all of his films on Rotten Tomatoes. On the other hand, when you average out Scorsese's films on Rotten Tomatoes, they get an 83%. This is only a 6-point disparity, but it still proves that, according to a critic's consensus, Kubrick films are better than Scorsese's. Now, I'm not saying that Rotten Tomatoes is the end-all be-all and that it's right, but that I'm just using that for this example. And this is also proven by other films that ring in at an 89 and films that ring in at an 83. Examples of films that ring in at an 89 are amazing films like Malcolm X, 1917, and My Neighbor Toro, while some films that ring in at an 83% are The Neverending Story, Stuart Little 2, and Elf. Now, those might not be the best examples of films from 83%, but you might want to judge for yourself who makes the better films based on Rotten Tomatoes. Both of these directors have obviously had a large impact on the film industry. With Scorsese, it's films like Taxi Driver and King of Comedy that are still being mimicked with a film such as The Joker that can't even come close to the greatness of Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy. This impact, though, isn't even as close as the impact that Stanley Kubrick has had on the industry. Kubrick was the first director to make a serious space film, and it was obviously a success, and many other films have been made in space. And nobody really talks about this, but without films like 2001: A Space Odyssey, there would be no Interstellar, and there wouldn't be Gravity, there wouldn't be any of these space films, and they all happened because of Stanley Kubrick. And many directors in current day are inspired by Kubrick, and it's obvious in their films. Obvious examples of this are in films like Under the Skin and Ex Machina. These are some of the best films of the last decade, and they were Kubrick inspired. And Kubrick and Scorsese's impact on the industry will be felt forever, but honestly, Kubrick's may be felt a little more. So obviously, I think that Kubrick is a better filmmaker than Scorsese, but this is still up for debate, and I'm willing to debate you guys in the comments, but let's just stay civil, because this is just my opinion. I think that both of these directors are two of the best directors to ever live. We can all agree on that. It's just really close between them, and in my opinion, I think that Kubrick is better. If you like this video though, drop it a like down below, and subscribe to join our community. And you can follow me on Letterboxd at DJ12, and you can follow me on Instagram at _DJ.Harrison, and you can argue me in the comments a little bit if you want to. And thanks for watching, you guys. I'll see you.